I think it's important to note that this environment was not here 12 months ago. This started in September, and very much with the help of John and Josh at AnalysisPro, we've actually developed this into quite a leading place for performance analysis, in my opinion. And I think it's important to understand this is still a work in progress and where we're going with it. But I'm going to talk you through how it's utilised at Millfield and how it's maybe changed compared to your environments and the different environments you may have worked in. So this is our mission statement, or my mission statement whilst I'm here. And again, it's very much centred around pupil and being individuals, of providing that information and feedback to the pupil to help them develop in their sport. So what does it look like? So this is my process. I'm going to talk you through what I do on a sort of day-to-day basis with each sport. I work with 5 sports here. Most analysts, well, I think at Cardiff Met they've got 3 analysts for the rugby team, which is what I like to remind David when I'm talking about staffing. But essentially, I work across 5 sports, which is football, rugby, hockey, both boys and girls, netball, and cricket. So it's very much, it's an interesting opportunity as an analyst to come in somewhere and have to learn and develop about different sports. I mean, I was chatting to Luke earlier, and we were talking about hockey. I didn't know anything about hockey till I got here. So coaches talk to me about pressing and outletting, and I'm looking at like, what are you talking about? But being able to develop that and develop that knowledge has really been beneficial to me, and also hopefully, well, I know it's been beneficial to the coaches and the athletes. So filming and coding. Filming is the most important thing of analysis, in my opinion. Without good film, without good footage, coach and athlete cannot interact with what you do. They simply will not get the benefits you're trying to profess to them out of it. So, filming provisions, what do we have here? Well, we began with a tripod and a camera, and me standing in the cold for a long amount of hours. What we've got now and what we're developing is the utilisation of IP cameras, which you'll see on the tour later on, and there is some footage later on in this presentation with it in. How we've changed our infrastructure by putting these IP cameras in, and they have revolutionised the way we film and the way we capture footage and the way we feed that back to the athletes. So like I said, filming is the most important thing. Coding. So code windows. Some of you may recognise this sort of stuff, some of you might not. We use Naxport Elite as our software, but essentially the code window is all the key performance indicators, or KPIs, that myself and the coaches sit down and discuss. So this one's our rugby code window. Myself and John sat down at the beginning of the season and we started to discuss what it is you want to see from a performance. We can't feed back to an athlete, and we can't therefore impact on their performance if we're not clear what we're trying to show them. So this has really helped us. It means I sit there and I go back through the match, and I'm notating basically what's going on in the performance, and it provides that feedback straight away in an easy, concise way when we go into the review process. So these two are really important, and for me they need to be discussed with a coach. So we're on the same page essentially. Moving on to reviewing. Once we've completed the coding, you have something like this. So you can see the timeline going along the bottom, and you've got the matrix here, which makes everything so much organised. The first rugby review I did with the boys, John and John Brimcombe, the other coach, both mentioned how useful it was to be able to go and look straight away at that relevant footage. No longer were they having to trawl through 80 minutes of tape to find that missed tackle or to find that really good scrum or line-out. There it all was in a concise fashion, and it was easy. So suddenly review sessions become much more relevant. We're able to provide that feedback to the players. They're able to see it, and they're able to learn from it quickly. And it also shortens it up. Rather than it being a 15-20 minute process, it can be 5 to 10 minutes and straight to the point. So this is one half of what I feel I do, being able to provide that visual feedback to the guys, and for them to be able to learn from it. And we're reviewing the ways we do that for next year, but essentially getting that footage out there. Athletes can't learn, well, some athletes learn better through visual, and this is what we provide them whilst we're here. The next side of things is the statistics. So this is what I call a dashboard, and this is something I've come up with. And this is what we present back to the players and the coaches post-match. So this would be sort of 24 hours after the match. John and the boys will get this on their TPE, which we'll talk about in a minute. And they'll have an idea of what's gone on. So these KPIs taken from the code window, and these stay the same. So we can start now actually measuring this sort of data in a wider spreadsheet, but essentially the guys know they can look at speed of ball, and they'll set their targets. So we've seen behavioural change in the boys in the rugby team and also the other teams that I've worked with, where they're able to conduct a self-review and they go off what they get here. So they'll set themselves how many penalties do they want to give away, and they might specify how many penalties at the contact area are we willing to give away, and we can actually measure that now. So it takes them a bit more responsibility, a bit more ownership, and certainly for those that are looking to go professional or go further in sport, it gives them an idea of what would be expected at the next level. So for me, these are the two main sort of feedback sources that we provide, and so far they've been very beneficial to our processes and the coaching process. How do we share this information? David alluded to it at the start. I think before I got here, some coaches filmed bits and bobs, and something I've seen when I've been away at different schools or national competitions is you see coaches with handheld cameras and they're filming this and they're filming that, but they don't know what to do with it. So there's no point doing it unless you've got a plan, unless you're going to share it. So how do we share it? Well, internally we share it on two mediums. TPE, or Team Performance Exchange, some of you will be aware of, but essentially it's an online athlete management website. We're able to have, each team has a license, so the cricket will have a license, all their players will be on that, and we can upload footage, we can upload documents, and we can share that information with the players and build that conversation with them. So there's two pros to it, I find. One, we know who's interacting. It tells us if they've logged on, it tells us how many times they've viewed something. And two, it allows conversation. So myself or Mark can talk about, we can put a clip up, they can write some comments underneath, and suddenly we can begin that conversation with the athletes. So rather than them turning up to a training session and not having ever reviewed the performance from the day before or the week before, they're actually there, we can have the conversation, and they're ready to go. So it speeds up that process. What else this is really beneficial for? The fact that we're in a school, kids have got they've got academic things that we often forget about at times. They've got all these other things going on. This allows them to do it in their own time, in their own space, and it really helps benefit that process. AP Viewer is the next one. AP Viewer is an iPad-based software where we're able to put a game on, and the timeline you saw, going back a couple of slides, we can imprint that into the iPad. So I can give that to Sean, and then he can, in his own time, again review, and everything is ordered concisely. So if he wants to look at all the short corners, he wants to look at all of where we've lost possession, certain areas of the pitch, it's there. So when he goes to a training session, he can have that in his hands. He can provide that visual feedback to the guys. If he wants to conduct a review and a team meeting, it's easy to do. We can link it up to a projector, and off we go. So we're empowering coaches, we're empowering the players to understand their performance, be able to review their performance in a way, and get that out there. So it's all well and good. Obviously, there's only one of me, but we need to be able to push that out further so that everyone's interacting. Externally, who do we share with? We share with more than these governing bodies, but I've just taken these as an example, and I'll go back to the Team Performance Exchange. One of the great benefits we've found is that at Bath Rugby we've got a few guys on the academy, and what we've done is we've put the academy coaches on our Team Performance Exchange website. So Lee Mears comes and does a line-out session with the rugby boys on a Thursday. He can look at the game before on the Wednesday. In the evening I put the line-outs up there. He's able to watch it all. He's able to have a look. He can build his own opinion on it. And then when he turns up to the session, he already knows what's gone on in that game. He doesn't need to travel down if he doesn't want to, if he's got other commitments. But essentially we can share that data out. And I know a number of the other sports have done so. So with cricket, we've got some guys from the ECB. From hockey, we've got some England hockey coaches on there. And we're able to share that information. Where I'd like to get to is be able to have a stronger links with the NGBs and be able to really have, for them to be able to really understand and see what the athletes are doing. So if they're monitoring an athlete who's at the school here, that we can provide all the information to make that transition for them going into the next level smoother. So there's less gaps essentially. I'm now going to ask John Mallet to come down and just answer a couple of questions, well, speak about how this is impacted in rugby. And his reflections so far on the year we've had.
Hi, Charlie. I'm Director of Rugby. I've been here for 10 years, which I guess makes me more senior than anyone else that's spoken so far. So I'm pleased about that. The benefits of having these systems linking in with the sport and the pupils has been huge, not least because Charlie does all the staring at the screen and not me having to sit up and do that, so it's certainly helpful on that front. In addition to my role as Director of Rugby, I'm also a PE teacher, so I cross over to both sides of the school, house parent and boarding house as well, so I've seen these things working from different sides really, the sporting side, but I think particularly important on the educational side that for a lot of you guys here, you're working for sports governing bodies, but also universities and things, and that's where most of our pupils will go. That Graham's mentioned one or two that might be going on to play full-time rugby for a little bit after they leave school, but actually the larger group are going on to do other things. And this, the analysis that we've been able to give to the pupils has empowered them to learn about their sport, improve themselves in terms of playing their sport. But I think even more importantly than their performance levels, their own self-awareness of how they're training and playing, how they're interacting with coaching, and understanding what we're trying to achieve on the rugby pitch. So it's really empowered the kids that play the sport by being able to give them the information and give them information in a style and format that it's easy for them to pick up their iPad or the phone and be able to review that. And I see boys in the boarding house will show me their clip of their tackles, normally the ones they've made, not the ones they've missed. But they're able to access that comfortably in a way that suits them. It's also meant that the team have been able to drive their own review of games, give themselves their feedback and help each other, which is developing them as people and the pupils we hope to help. But their ability to do that gives the pupils their chance to empower them really. That self-review looks like on a Monday. Charlie's done the analysis, he's done the dashboard. That will be up in the change rooms. The boys will meet. I'm often not there. They will review the game themselves, make notes about the week ahead and their training. So that's just the sort of practical example of their understanding of it. And I think whatever they go on and do, whether they're going to play rugby after school or whatever, but actually it's good practice of their own self-awareness and self-development. In addition to that, a lot of people in the room are a testament to the fact that there's many sports careers now and the sport industry is growing, and actually our pupils understanding that this sort of thing is out there, that there are careers in that, and it's available to them, is very healthy and useful in terms of them understanding that. And then for those that are going into rugby, they're learning about the next environment they're going to, and they're going a little bit better prepared for the work they've done here. Certainly beneficial from that point of view as well. They've been able to share some of their highlights, which have been an incredibly powerful marketing tool for some of the boys to be able to show clubs clips of them performing, but also interact with their academy coaches who aren't necessarily here. One of the concerns that sports have, and certainly for rugby, is that the boys are going away to a school and they're not going to see much of them, not be able to interact with their coaches at Bath or whatever that might be. By the use of TPE and the information that's on there, those coaches can also watch their school games and understand us better about what's going on here. So to have those links has been a real benefit. But I think the core importance of this, the analysis side, but a lot of the other elements that we're putting into the sports is the education of pupils, regardless of their covered everything.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So now I'm going to ask Mark Garaway to pop up and just talk about sort of the impact of cricket and how that's impacted his environment. And obviously we use the IP camera in cricket, which has had a massive impact. It's only been in since Easter, so it's a new tool for us, and what we're finding has been really beneficial in the sort of feedback we're providing.
Hi, I'm Mark Garaway. I've been here for 3 years and my role is Director of Cricket Coaching. And there's the IP camera that Charlie talked about, and this is a new addition. It's come as a result of our partnership with Josh and John, who have been very supportive to us as an environment in cricket as well as the school as well. We put this camera in really to initially formulate some match analysis through other systems that you've already seen displayed within Rugby. And here's a cricket version of the dashboard that was shown up from a rugby perspective. And we produce these every single game, and it gives us an insight into the flow of the game and what the things were that made the ultimate difference. Also, we play a huge amount of our games at home as well, which has its pros and its cons in terms of future development of people, because obviously half your games are away normally, but when you play here that doesn't always the case. But it allows us to build up a real good history pattern of what our ground gives us and what our ground needs to be had played on it to give you a successful outcome at the end. So the dashboard up there, this is a game we played Dorset under 21s the other week. Most of our fixtures are played against more senior cricketers, either academy, university, or in this case on the 21s we play a number of adult teams as well. The idea really is to stretch a number of our cricketers, because many of them have aspirations of going on to professional cricket, and not always playing against school sides is going to be the appropriate environment to stretch them. So when we look at these stats, our ultimate aim is to win 9 games in a year and lose 9 games in a year, and that gives us a pretty good balance. So sometimes we get a bit of a hump in, and other times we come out on top. And in this game, we came out on top after a number of weeks of work on some certain key performance indicators. Everything that's up there is then replicated within our interventions that we put down in our nets or in our cricket bubble and all of our environments we work in. And hopefully in a little while when you come round, you'll see a bit of evidence of that. So the one up in the top left here, we talk about runs stolen and runs missed, and we monitor the opposition and we monitor ourselves, and our aim is to be significantly ahead of them in terms of our awareness and also our performance in stealing runs all over the ground when we're running between the wickets, but also to be able to save runs, which you can see in the top right hand corner when it comes to fielding. In this game it was a complete mismatch because our awareness was much more than an invitational side that hadn't played against with each other before, so we sort of expected that to happen anyway. But it was a fantastic example of the way that we're creating runs. The other things that we monitor, which is more of the flat stat basis down in the bottom right hand corner, are things like scoring ball percentages, and without being too boring, the holy grail of winning games of cricket in 50 over is to score off a higher percentage of balls than the opposition, is pretty much it. And what you're looking for in truth over the course of the innings is to score around over 50%. Now interestingly in this game we scored just under 50%, so we were below our sort of benchmark levels, but interestingly the opposition that we played at was significantly below those. So we're looking to get around 50% for most of our cricket, but for certain players who are coming in later in the orders to be scoring nearer 70. And those are reflected over in the far right-hand corner column. The great thing from the analysis that Charlie's doing now is that on an individual, so if we chose any of those players there, we can see how they play their scoring ball percentages against spin and how it is against pace, because they're different skill sets. And then we get little red flags that tell us that we need to do a little bit of work on the spin play, in particular against off spin, as a result of this, which means that our interventions are far more targeted. This is the quality of the camera. So this is we've had 3 games where we've gone directly down the line of the pitch because it's a static camera. But actually when we've gone off centre as well, it's been absolutely magnificent in terms of the quality that we've got. The batter who's just hit that one for 4 there, that's Tom Moores. That's Peter Moores, the England head coach's son, who's in England under 17 programme. Every bit of his footage gets sent up to the England under 17 coaches. And whilst it was great to see Ian Brunchweiler, the head coach, with us on the weekend watching the game against Malvern. He'd also been tracking Tom's performance both behind the stump statistically and also visually. This is Ben Fullard. He's actually an interesting case. He came to the school in year 12 and said to me, I play cricket, because he hadn't come from any programmes, and he's now going off, hopefully, if his grades are up to it, off to Cardiff to join up with their MCCU programmes, really embraced what we've done technically, but also the stuff that's been around. And this lad's Matt Maroney, and he's getting there as well. In a crickety term, he used to run up and fart the ball out down the other end. He's now getting there with the help of Graham and Alan physically, which is enabling him to knock people's stumps over and then just give them a little wave off to the pavilion, as you just saw there, which we don't condone, obviously. Then the other advantage here, this is working with Tom Bevan. He's a year 9, and that was the first ball of a session that we had a few weeks ago. Fortunately this time Charlie's put the sound down because there was a slightly dodgy noise that came from the analysis room, which is here, to support that great catch. The great thing about that, as John talked about, best performance stuff, is that we can stick that on TPE. He's got it forever. If there's ever a drop catch that goes down, he can go back to it and just go, you know, this is what I'm capable of. It's fantastic reinforcement for him as well. But just having that mobility of our vision is crucial when we're trying to develop people in what is a multi-directional, multifaceted game. So that's fantastic. Of course, Tom then stuck it on Twitter, and he's now got more followers than me, which I'm a bit disappointed about. But he's going great, which is fantastic. So that's the IP camera side of things. What we've been able to do, Charlie's experience that he's picked up along the way through his education and his working environment, allied with some really good partnerships that we've developed, and Somerset obviously being our local county, but a bit more broadly now, we've had Warwickshire come in, who we haven't had any links with before, but they were interested to see what we were doing, and we've got a bit of information sharing going on there as well, and then obviously the work that Josh and John have been able to provide for us, and then allied to a bit of my old job, which was to do Charlie's job with the England cricket team for a few years. We're beginning to get it together in how we're trying to produce it. Long term, my aim is for us to, because this is very first team orientated at the moment, and I think, you know, in the rugby it's been mostly at the top end of the school, but from an educational perspective for me, I hate the word brand of cricket, but there's positive cricket that we're trying to engender throughout all of our squads, and the great thing is that rather than being talked about or written on a document, we can now actually show people the type of things that we want. So when the kids come in from the prep schools into year 9, we can actually be starting to work on these things and saying, this is the vision for you when you come into year 12 and 13 and forming our first 11. And then you've got four years of development all linked along those lines, which is absolutely amazing. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to receive them. And if not, I'll be outside for a coffee. Thank you.
Perfect. That's really the end of sort of my bit. I think, as Mark sort of touched on, we are looking to try and filter this down to the lower levels, and very much so this first year has all been about first team. And sort of, I talked about the relevance. You've got to understand the environment you're in, but we're certainly trying to filter it down and just even provide that just basic visual feedback to sort of some of the year 9s, which we have been able to do with the girls hockey this year, and which I think has benefits for them just to be able to see themselves on the screen, how they play, how they look. So that is in the long-term plan, is how do we filter it, but essentially what you've seen today is sort of what we've been able to do in the sort of 10 months we've been here. Again, any questions, please dive in now, or I'll be on the tour later, so if you've got anything you want to come and ask me, you're more than welcome to. I'll hand you back over to Dave.